Well, good evening. I'd like to welcome each of you to our SPLOST 2016 Town Hall meeting this evening. By way of introduction, for those of you who I don't know, my name is Alan Hours and I serve as County Manager. I'd also like to introduce some other county officials here with us tonight. We have many of our Board of Commissioners here. We have on my, on your left, Commissioner Bill Brunson, Commissioner Mike Browning, Commissioner and Chairman Richard Strickland, Commissioner Bob Coleman, Commissioner Alan Booker. Also like to welcome Mayor Cornell Harvey. We have City Commissioner Johnny Cason here, and we also have JWSC Commissioner Don Elliott. And hopefully I didn't miss anyone. We're also live streaming this and televising it on Channel 99. So for our viewers, we welcome you here this evening as well. So the purpose of tonight's meeting, and this is the second of 4 town hall meetings, to provide you, our citizens, with information regarding SPLOST 2016. The Board of Commissioners has called for a referendum on November 8th of this year, and there will be a question on the ballot. And the question will ask you whether or not to impose a 1-cent sales tax for the purpose of capital projects. If it's approved, the projects will begin on April 1st, 2017 and end no later than September 30th, 2020. Now, if the $71.5 million is collected before September 30th of 2020, then the tax will stop. For example, if it's collected in April of 2020 or even before then, the tax will stop at that point, so it will be sunset. The board also, if SPLOST passes, will put into effect a Citizens Oversight Committee. This has worked well with the Board of Education, and the Board of Commissioners believes that it also would work well with county projects. The county in previous SPLOST, we've never had a Citizens Oversight Committee, but the board believes that this would be important. So what is SPLOST? Some of you may be new to the area, and we're not here in the past when we had the SPLOST. So SPLOST, the acronym, stands for Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax, and it is for a special purpose. It's for capital projects. The tax is used to fund capital projects throughout Georgia. In fact, there are only about a handful of counties that don't have SPLOST in Georgia. Many years ago, I'm guessing 25 or 30 years ago, the General Assembly, in their wisdom, authorized local communities, county governments, and there are 159 counties in Georgia, to ask their citizens to approve a local option sales tax for capital projects, probably at the request of many county commissioners and city commissioners and mayors, because there needed to be a way other than property taxes to pay for capital projects. I'll give you an example of that. So if you do the math, and over a 3.5 period of time, the $71.5 million equals about $20 million a year. Well, if we were to raise property taxes to bring in $20 million a year for capital projects, we'd have to almost double the county millage rate. The current county millage rate is 5.673. In fact, it's the 5th lowest in the state. Thought I'd mention that. But we'd have to increase the millage by 5 mills to provide $20 million for capital projects. That's not going to happen. This group of gentlemen up behind me is not going to raise the county millage by 5 mills to pay for capital projects. It's just not going to happen. So how do we pay for capital projects? SPLOST is a great way to pay for capital projects. Let me expand on that. So a recent study commissioned by the Chamber of Commerce that was performed by the Carl Vinson Institute of Governments at the University of Georgia did a study on where the sales tax comes from in Glynn County. In other words, if we collect $1 of sales tax in Glynn County, where does it come from? Their study said, based on their research, that 53.7% to 57% of the sales tax comes from people that do not live in Glynn County. Now, we do get many visitors each year. We get close to 3 million visitors or tourists a year that come to Glynn County. But we also get many more people than that. In fact, every day, 14,000 people come from Brantley, Camden, McIntosh, Wayne, and other places to work here in Glynn County. When they're here, they're eating lunch, they're stopping at the store, perhaps at their lunch hour, on their way home, they're buying goods and services here in Glynn County. We've also become a retail hub with the new Canal Crossing Shopping Center. We're already drawing people from outside our county to shop there. The first store is open as Hobby Lobby. I actually talked with the developer today. He said Hobby Lobby is really excited because their sales are on target or on track. And so we've become a regional hub for retail sales. So in other words, if and again it's not going to happen, if the board did choose to impose a millage for capital projects, we'd be paying all of it. We'd be paying all of it. But with the sales tax, over 50%, and we can have a conversation about the numbers and whether that's the right number or not. I think it's pretty close. But the fact of the matter is, over half of it comes from people who don't live here. They get to pay for infrastructure that's important for us. So how have SPLOST funds been used in the past? In fact, I would suggest to you that without SPLOST, the previous SPLOST we've had, Glynn County would look very different than what it looks like today. The new county courthouse was built with SPLOST funds. The county jail was built with SPLOST funds. The beautiful North Glynn Regional Park was built with SPLOST funds. And I could go down the list. So the SPLOST money in the past has helped Glynn County meet the needs of our citizens and our visitors by providing infrastructure, and not only buildings, but taking care of our roads and taking care of our drainage systems. As I mentioned before, 4 town hall meetings have been planned. This is the second one. The next one will be on October 11th at St. William's Church on St. Simon's Island. As I mentioned earlier, the purpose of the meetings is to inform you about what's on the list. Now, this PowerPoint presentation is on the county's website. We're recording this tonight, so the video will be also on the website after tonight's meeting. And then out in the foyer of this room, we have several posters, and one of which is a list of the projects, which is also on the county website. So again, the purpose of the meeting is to inform our citizens of what's included in SPLOST. However, it's not the county's role or the city of Brunswick's role, and I forgot to introduce the city manager, Jim Drum. He came in late, so welcome. But it's not our role to say to you, Mr. Drum, you need to vote for SPLOST, and this is why. In fact, it's against the law for me or county staff to ask anybody to vote for SPLOST. Our job is to merely educate the public. So you might ask, well, what about the other SPLOST? Where are we with them? Because I'm not sure that, I want to consider voting on the new SPLOST unless I understand where we are with these others. And that's a really good question. And so, anticipating the question, I'm going to go ahead and cover it. SPLOST 4, we're about done. Out of 47 projects, 44 have been completed, and we have 3 left. The conference center downtown will soon be under design by the city. That's a city-led project. Spur and Perry Lane Road intersection improvements. If you've been out that way, you can see that that's under construction, and that should be finished by December of this year. And then we'll be under design soon for a bridge at South Palm Drive and Highway 17, and I will talk about that more later. So SPLOST 4, we're about done. SPLOST 5, total of 48 projects. We have 6 remaining. One is a wastewater treatment plant in the western part of the county, and we're working with our partner at JWSC to try to determine the best place to either acquire land or permit or exactly what we need to do. We also have a water line rehabilitation taking place at Alder Circle and Island, and then under design at Glen Haven on St. Simon's Island, we have a sewer line that's being rehabilitated, and the construction is expected to start in early 2017. So that's 3 of the 6. Let me talk about the remaining 3. So on Harry Driggers Road at Glencoe Parkway, we are going to extend that bike path. And then we have drainage rehabilitation improvements. We have under contract at Buck Swamp Road a new bridge. Glencoe Parkway, a new bridge there at the Altamaha Canal is under design. And then over on Ocean Boulevard on the island, we have a project underway. And then South Harrington Park, which is a very nice passive park adjacent to the historic schoolhouse on South Harrington Road, is under construction and will be complete later this year. So as you can see, SPLOST 4 is almost completed, and SPLOST 5 will be completed in the next few months. Someone also asked me a question recently, well, are you still collecting SPLOST money from SPLOST 5? The sales tax ended in 2012 or 2011, but anyway, it ended a few years back. We are not collecting that sales tax. It has stopped. So let's get into the county projects. And if you look at the SPLOST list, there are 4 areas. One is Glynn County projects. One is City of Brunswick projects, and the mayor is going to address those in a few minutes. One is a project on Jekyll Island, and then there are 2 projects for joint water and sewer, and our new executive director, Jimmy Junkin, is here as well to speak to those. So let's talk about the Glynn County projects. We have road projects. Let me digress for a minute. I should have said this at the beginning, but at the conclusion of our remarks collectively, we're going to allow an opportunity for you to ask questions. So during that time, just to sort of keep some sense of order, if you could line up in the middle aisle, and that will put you close to the microphone as well. So I apologize for not mentioning that earlier, but everyone will have an opportunity to ask questions. So county projects, road projects. There's almost $16 million included with road projects. The first area is resurfacing. Now, I'm sure you, as I do, drive every day in Glynn County and you see certain things. Earlier this week, some neighborhood roads, some collector roads and neighborhoods I was riding through. It was a perfect illustration of roads that need to be resurfaced. We have many roads in Glynn County that need to be resurfaced. Most of our arterial roads, and our arterial road is like Altama Avenue or like Frederica Road, which are main roads that take you to collector roads that take you to residential streets. Over on the island, Frederica Road from Kingsway to north of Holly Street, we need to resurface that. And then you can see the other 2 collector roads listed on the slide on the screen that we need to resurface. The majority of the funds will go towards resurfacing residential and collector streets. So I encourage you, now that we're sort of talking about this, when you drive around, and it may be dark when you leave here tonight, but tomorrow when you drive around, look at the roads you're driving on. It may be in your neighborhood. It may be the road going into your neighborhood. But when you see the cracking, it's called alligator cracking, or the shoulder, the failure on the sides of the road, that road needs to be resurfaced. And if we don't do it at that point in time, then we get to a point of no return, and it becomes very expensive to try to take care of that road. Now, Glynn County, our budget, if we divide this up over in 3 years, we do not have $3 million a year that we can devote to resurfacing. Without SPLOST, it's going to be difficult for the county to maintain our roads and keep them in the condition that you as citizens expect them to be in. That not only impacts you as citizens and what you have to drive on, but it impacts our community as people look at it from outside. And the whole message here is about SPLOST. SPLOST is designed to pay for capital projects, because normally county budgets, they can't begin to touch expensive projects like we're talking about. We also have the reconstruction of Old Jessup Road out in the western part of the county. If you were to ride down there, you think you were at King's Dominion amusement park, because you're bouncing up and down. There's an entire section of road that needs to be dug up and rebuilt because of the undersurface. So that's a project. Over on Canal Road, if you've been out to Canal Road, you know where the new 4-lane section ends, right at the end of the shopping center. And so what this money would do is take Canal Road to 4 lanes all the way to Glencoe Parkway. Now, that's part of the county's transportation plan. Part of the transportation plan is to also take Glencoe Parkway and 4-lane it all the way to Highway 17. Highway 17 is actually under design now to 4-lane it from where it stops. Where it stops all the way to Highway 99, and 4-lane Highway 99 all the way to Highway 341. Three important reasons for having a network of 4-lane roads throughout Glynn County. Number one, so you, as our citizens, have a way to get to where you need to go in Glynn County in a safe manner. A lot of these current 2-lane roads are not safe, and so the 4-lane will also not only widen it and improve capacity, but also increase safety. Second reason is for economic development. The airport, that area of the county, is where a lot of our land is that's prime for new business development. So economic development, as businesses look to Glynn County, they want to make sure they have appropriate highways so when their products leave their company, their plant, they can get quickly to market. Economic development. For us to be a competitor in economic development, we have to continue to improve our road infrastructure. Third reason is if we have a storm that's bigger than Tropical Storm Hermine that came in here a few weeks ago and we need to evacuate, we need the most routes possible to get the public out of Glynn County and to a safe place. So those are 3 reasons why our transportation plan needs to be implemented. Obviously not all at once, but over time. We also have a project in here to extend Dungeness Drive to Southport Parkway. Does anyone here live in the Exit 29 area? Okay. You do? Okay. Many of our families and our residents in Glynn County travel down Southport Parkway in the Exit 29 area every day to take their children to school. We also have a lot of really nice subdivisions along Southport Parkway. Okay. Well, now, if I'm taking my child to school and I leave, I have to go down Southport Parkway to Palisades Drive, out to Dungeness Drive, and then out to Highway 17. It's a safety issue. When I'm sitting at Palisade Drive and turning left on Dungeness Drive, you can't get out. So I'm going to be late for work. I may be in an accident because of the safety and the time considerations. So what this project will do is extend Dungeness Drive all the way through from Highway 17 to Southport Parkway. Sidewalks. We We have several sidewalks planned, and we have a map outside, again, on our website, but we have a poster board, and there's a key. So if you look at the key, it will show you where the sidewalks projects are, where the road projects are. And so we have many sidewalk projects in this SPLOST. Harry Driggers Road, and Catherine, if you could put up the map, please. Harry Driggers Road, this would extend the sidewalk from where it ends by the elementary school all the way to Highway 17, and that will complete the sidewalk from Highway 17, and part of SPLOST 5, if you remember me mentioning that, takes the sidewalk from where it ends on Harry Driggers all the way around to Glencoe Parkway and out to the spur. So this will complete that loop. Now, while we're talking about this area of the county, some people have asked me, well, why does it take so long to do some SPLOST projects? These things seem to last forever. Well, some things are out of our control. Okay, this particular sidewalk from where it ends at Harry Driggers now down to Glencoe Parkway down to the spur is a really good example. Okay, we're matching federal transportation money with our SPLOST dollars to build that sidewalk. Well, because we're using federal transportation dollars, we had to do an environmental study. Well, that environmental study said at the intersection of Glencoe Parkway and Harry Driggers, there's a little critter in the ditch. So the whole project stopped until we could figure out how to resolve that issue. Well, we figured it out, and it's back on track, but that's a real good example of sometimes things are out of our control. There at Perry Lane Road and the spur, that project, we have several businesses there that we had to acquire right-of-way from every business to make the project work. Well, that took a long time, and we had to keep redesigning it and go back to the businesses and work things out. So sometimes things take longer and they're out of our control. Now, while I'm mentioning that, so you say, well, what makes this SPLOST any different? Well, what makes it different is that these gentlemen behind me and the other two county commissioners have told me if SPLOST 2016 passes, you are to start immediately on getting this done. So their directive, very clear directive I might add, and some of my staff in the audience, they're trying to figure out how to adjust their schedule so we can proceed. But as I said at the last town hall meeting, if it passes on November 8th, November 9th, we will begin starting planning, designing. We're not going to wait on the sales tax to start being collected April 1st of 2017. We will begin immediately to get these projects done because we understand that our citizens want the projects done in an expedient manner. We also have a couple sidewalk projects on the island, and I'll skip over that, trying to sensitive to the time, and go right to drainage projects. And Catherine, if you could go to the map. So we have several drainage projects. We have some on St. Simon's Island, and we have some on the mainland. In the village, we have a serious problem anytime there's a decent rain in the village with flooding. So this project is going to hopefully address that, put in some tide gates to stop the tide from coming in, because when the tide comes in and we have a rain event, the water has nowhere to go. So this will help address that. I mentioned earlier on SPLOST 4 about the South Palm Ditch design. So the new bridge, is that it? Okay, right there would be so the design money is in the previous SPLOST. This is the construction money to build a new bridge there at South Palm Drive and Highway 17. That particular area drains Glynn Place Mall. This whole watershed here drains right through that area. The pipes that are going under Highway 17 currently, They're not large enough. So we have water that backs up, so it's a huge drainage problem that we need to address. So you might ask the question, well, why is the county using county money to pay for a bridge on a state and federal highway? That's a good question. And the reason why is because the bridge has nothing to do with the highway. The bridge has everything to do with water, storm drainage. That's the county's responsibility. So that's why we have to put in the bridge. There's also a joint project with the city of Brunswick in Glynn County in the College Park area. So that's also a large watershed. So if you're on Altama Avenue and you're driving north, and when you cross over Community Road, on either side of you, all the way to the spur, that whole area eventually drains down underneath the spur, goes in behind Target, and eventually comes out on Highway 17. That's referred to, so when you see it on the chart, the College Park drainage improvements. Okay. A few weeks ago, when we had a heavy rain, it wasn't part of the tropical storm, but when we had a heavy rain, I drove down through that area. The ditches are full. Excuse me. The water has nowhere to go because the pipes underneath the road aren't large enough to carry the water quickly to get it away from the area. So some people say, well, why is drainage so important? Well, we need to get the water off the road so it's safe. It's a safety issue. Not only safety for the potential flooding of property, but also a safety issue for people driving down the road. I already talked about the bridge project. So let's go to intersection improvements. And if you could put up the map. So we have several intersection improvements. About a year and a half ago, we had a study done on St. Simon's Island that identified where the bottlenecks were. On the island, there are many bottlenecks for traffic. Okay? And what this study identified were key intersections that need to be improved to help move traffic. And there's been a lot of discussion about a roundabout at Frederica Road and Sea Island Road. So let me be clear. SPLOST 2016, let me be clear. SPLOST 2016 does not include a roundabout at Sea Island Road and Frederica. I said that at the last town hall meeting, and someone asked me a question later about why are you planning a roundabout at that intersection? We're not. Now, I will say that the long-range the study did say long-range, long-term, a roundabout would be helpful there, but it's not planned here. There are 3 roundabouts planned, though, in this SPLOST, and let me point them out to you. One is at Sea Island Road, Kingsway in Frederica, right at this intersection. One is at Ocean Boulevard and East Beach Causeway, and one is at East Beach Causeway and Demery Road. And the traffic study indicated that the best way to move traffic through those intersections, and I haven't spent as much time at the 2 on the East Beach Causeway as I have at Kingsway in Frederica, but I can tell you from personal experience, and I'm sure most people in this room can as well, that that's a bottleneck. A signalization at that intersection just doesn't work. So a roundabout is going to move traffic through. To me, this is the worst intersection in Glynn County. It's on the mainland. This is the Spur, Altama Connector, Nally Auto Dealership, Applebee's, Golden Corral, so bank here, and Chick-fil-A. And I love Chick-fil-A, one of my favorite places to go. But it's tough to get to. Almost like, is it really worth it? I usually go because it is really worth it. But that's a intersection that needs to be improved. Majority of the intersection money, or this is the largest single project for intersections, $3.2 million. So if you were to ask me the question, well, what's it going to look like? What's the design going to be? I don't know. That's what the civil engineers do. They design the intersection. But this intersection will be fixed, not just for today, but for the future as well. We also have some funding in here for dirt road paving. The county's ultimate goal is to have no dirt roads in the county. Dirt roads take a lot of maintenance, they take a lot of time, and we have some dirt roads that create problems, especially when it's wet. Pinnock Road is just one example for our citizens who use that road. So we have 2 roads on the mainland to be paved and 2 small roads on the island. Let's talk about animal control. There's been a lot of discussion about this. And the animal control facility has outgrown its existing space. And I'm talking about the main building. For those of you who have been out there, the main building has outgrown its space. We need more space for the functions that main building supports. The cats, the surgery area, the laundry area, and that type of thing. After much discussion and consideration, the Board of Commissioners believes long-term the best way to address this problem is to relocate the facility and build a new facility at our public safety complex. There are a lot of reasons for that. One is it's land we own and is easily accessible. Number 2 is it's some of the highest ground in Glynn County. The current location for animal control is low-lying, it's wet, which continues to create problems for the existing facility. So there will be a new animal control facility in place. Now, some may argue that, we could just add on to the existing facility. So we might have a conversation about how to best utilize the money. But hopefully, we'll all agree that there is a space need and we need to fix it. And the Board of Commissioners, again, has decided to build a new facility. The county has taken on the city animal control in 2012, and we all know that the county continues to grow. In fact, Glynn County is growing at about 4.5% a year. We're issuing about 500 new building permits a year for single-family homes. So our county is growing, and with that growth comes more animals. So that total, those are all county projects, and the total of those is about $40.5 million. Let me touch on Jekyll Island projects real quick before I turn it over to Mayor Harvey. It's $2.3 million in SPLOST to resurface 10 miles of roads. These are residential roads on Jekyll Island, and to resurface parking areas on Jekyll Island. Now, I've already heard the question, well, why is the county providing money to a state park authority? It's a good question. And the reason why is we have our citizens who live there as well. This money will be spent on residential roads. In the last 8 years, there's been $200 million of new investment on Jekyll Island. Another $80 million new investment has been committed to. In addition to that, back several years ago, the county did not give Jekyll Island any SPLOST money. We were sued. The lower court decided that Jekyll Island was entitled to SPLOST money. Now, it was appealed to the appeals court and was thrown out on a technicality. But the lower court said, yes, Jekyll Island collects the sales tax and they are entitled to part of it. And again, to me, the most important thing is we have citizens who live there who should have the same good quality of roads that we have elsewhere in Glynn County. And with that, I will stop and turn it over to Mayor Harvey.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Howard. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate everyone who came out tonight to listen to as we try to explain what we would do with the SPLOST dollars that will be collected for this community. I'm always talking about community, and together we can make things better and make this community the best it's ever been. The city of Brunswick has our SPLOST projects total basically $13,800,000 some total. However, as we start off, we put a lot of money into our engineering and public works area. We did that mainly because we really felt that as we do things in the public, we want to make sure that we take care of all the safety things that happen in our city as well. We talked about put a lot of money for milling our streets, various streets, mainly because we used to patch streets here and there, one over here, one over there. We decided now what we're going to do now is to try to take a street and take it all the way through. In other words, pave it from the beginning to end. And that way, and then we'll get on a maintenance schedule where we can make sure that as we constantly update our streets to make sure we have good, adequate streets for people to drive down and drive around. And that way it can eliminate some of all these potholes that a lot of folks been running into lately. I also want to acknowledge Johnny Cason, or Commissioner Cason. Sidewalk replacement, we have to do that. We realize that schools do not do sidewalks, and we're going to make sure that we put some the money in for sidewalks, especially our school. One of the schools, our school on 17, has no sidewalks, and our kids are walking in the street basically. When it rains, when it floods, now they're walking in the water. So we're going to take care of that, and this SPLOST will take care of that as well. Mary Ross Park. Everyone realized that we have to do something about that park. It's a nice park. It's a nice area. A couple of years back, one of the individuals from University of Georgia said that Mary Ross Park was just a piece of land with a shack on it, and we took an exception to that. So we started a process where we had individuals, the public, tell us what we want to do to Mary Ross Park, give us a design, what we would like to have there. We also have started to implement that design, and we are starting with phases. And the first phase of that is to show up the dock area, and we're beginning to do that. And with this SPLOST dollars will help us to continue to take that out to fruition. And when it's done, it's going to be a beautiful park. Our wayfinding and gateways realize that we need better signage. Our gateways is our entry into our community. Realizing too that Brunswick is the key to the Golden Isles, and we want that key to look very well, especially when someone comes to visit our area. We want to make sure that they know that this is a viable community as well. Trails, we're going to make sure we do the trails. There's a lot of people who love to bike here, and we're going to make sure that we take care of those. One of the things I really want to talk about is cemeteries. If we don't take care of our cemeteries, we are not a very good community. You got to take care of those. Our commissioners have made it a priority that we do that. And so that's going to be one of the main things. We're going to extend the cemetery. We're going to plot it out so we can have more space for burial for the individuals that for our community as well. Public safety, as I talk about this a little bit, the city of Brunswick has, our police cars are 8 to 10 years old, and we need to replace them. We plan to use this SPLOST to replace those vehicles and also start a maintenance and replacement plan where every so many years we replace those vehicles, so we always have a up-to-date vehicle fleet to make sure that we can take care of our public. public safety is paramount for the city of Brunswick. Also, we plan on building, adding a taller bay for one of our fire stations. We plan on getting a new fire trucks. Our bay is too small for our taller fire trucks, so we need to expand that, and we're going to do that. There's on a list about 2 new fire trucks, and they are replacing some old fire trucks too, realizing that the city of Brunswick had, when this economic downturn came here to the economy, it kind of hurt Brunswick really, really bad. We're finally getting up on our feet, but this is a way to take care of all those safety issues that we need to take care of. So these fire trucks will replace a 1990 engine and also a 1993 engine. Neighborhood and community services. Everyone knows how great our historic squares are, and we're going to make sure we maintain those very well. Park improvement as well. But I want to talk a little bit about Sidney Lanier Park and Overlook Park. Those parks are paramount to our city. And it's paramount because it says something about our city. And we need to, well, one thing, we don't have any restroom facilities at those parks. And to me, that's a shame. I'm ashamed to say, because it's great parks, and we want people to come look at the beautiful area, especially of Sidney Lanier Bridge. And we need to have restroom facilities out there, and also power. We want to make that a park where everybody can use it very well. It's to have a boat ramp, and so we plan on improving those parks. Howard Coffin Park as well. That's our premier, where we have our recreation facilities for our kids, and we're going to improve that. And Roosevelt Harris Senior Center. I was talking to a young lady the other day. Well, I went to a birthday party of a young lady who was 90 years old, and she invited a number of her friends to the party, and each one got up to talk about being there to wish well wishes to this young lady, and all of them say they met her at the Senior Citizen Center. That's where they know her at. So this center is a vital part of our community. People go there sometimes just to sit and socialize with their friends. And so we need to improve that facility. I don't think anything has been done to that facility since the inception. So we need to do that, and that's one of the things that we are mandated to do. So in total, our project's number is $13.8 million to do the things in Brunswick. Although we realize that this is a start, a good start, it by all no means will handle all the projects, some of the things that the city needs. However, we got to get going with our community. Brunswick is on a rebound and rebuilding, and this will help us as we engage and revitalize our city. Together with the county, you're going to see this community just thrive and become just so vibrant. However, with these dollars, these will make things happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to ask Jimmy Junkin to come up and talk with you a little bit about the joint water and sewer projects. Mr. Junkin is our new executive director for joint water and sewer, and I think he's off to a great start.
Thank you, Alan. Basically, the Joint Water and Sewer Commission's got 2 major projects coming out of the SPLOST. One of them is the North Mainland District, and what that project is going to be is to take the flows from major lift stations that are up in the or from a major lift station, 2 of them actually, up in the northwest area of the county, and reroute those and bring them down to to our resources. Let me see if I can help you out. bring them from here and here, and bring them down this direction by rerouting force mains and upgrading facilities downstream to be able to accept them. What does this do for us? It allows us to open up the areas up here, provide more capacity in this area, and allow for development, along with assistance to the Trade Winds Industrial Park up there. It also takes a huge amount of load off the stations to the east. There's 6 stations downstream of these, come down the east side, that go through, and 3 of them are basically over capacity at this point, or beyond the design capacity they should have to serve the current customer loadings. If we can do this project, that will take a tremendous amount of future capital requirements off of our plate. Instead of spending 11.7 to do this project, we'll spend somewhere on the order of, as I recall, $35 million to upgrade the facilities to the east to facilitate the things that this will do. I think the lift station 4110 and lift station 4039 are the 2 stations I'm talking about their flows will be reversed. And they'll take flows off of, again, stations to the east that are currently fairly old, and as I said, 3 of those lift stations are currently operating at a level that's below what is recommended for the service, the current customer loadings. While they're doing that, we're going to be repairing and upgrading some 4,800 feet of sewer lines that are worn out and old, deteriorated, fixing leaks, upgrading them to the point where they'll be more substantial. In order to be able to reroute those lines now, though, the downstream lift stations that'll be taking the flows will have to be upgraded, and there will have to be some repairs in those areas. Those lines, there'll be another 6,500 square feet of lines down in those areas that'll need work due to their condition and just due to the capacity. Certainly that'll keep us, the fact that we go back in and repair those things will reduce I&I. What is I&I? It's the inflow and infiltration. So as everybody knows, normally sanitary sewer goes in one set of lines, stormwater goes in ditches and other lines. But never the two should meet. But in our case, as in most older utilities, in all utilities, I would say, sewer utilities in the country, where they have separate sewers, where the lines have defects in them, where the pipes are old, where they've got cracks, where the community's age of the equipment or the assets have gotten so old that it allows rainwater to get in. Whenever it rains, it finds a way and from the surface, gets in and loads up those lines. Well, what does that do? It takes up capacity that would be normally allotted for sewer. But in a bad rain, if you've got enough of those cracks, it increases the potential for an overflow that would release sewage. So these repairs are pretty substantial, and they're pretty necessary for 2 reasons. One, it frees up the capacity up in the northwest area or the northern mainland, again, to help us with the industrial park and to help us with the building activities that need to go in up there. And right now in those areas, we're at virtual standstill. The other thing it does is it takes load off of some currently overloaded older assets and gets rid of a bunch of the older stuff. That portion of the SPLOST is $11.7 million. The other project that's part of our the other project that we've got is the City of Brunswick sewer project, which basically is to go in and take out an old lift station, upgrade gravity sewer lines, and repair or rehab, 3,600 linear feet. And again, it's the same thing where you've got older assets that have, because of age and whatnot, they don't function like they should. The lines are flawed, defective, and between roots, cracks, and those kind of things, the I&I issues are pretty significant in this area as well. So to improve our capacity and level of service to all of our customers in this area, we need to go in and rehab all those lines. And that's, again, about 3,600 linear feet of lines in those neighborhoods. It's a fairly expensive piece of work on linear because these are all in the streets, and this is going to be going in and tearing up the lines or the streets to get to them. And we will be coordinating with the city on these to try to get any storm sewer work we can done, so that if we tear up the streets, we pave them over one time and don't go back. But in summary, I want to make the point that the two projects that we've got here are total estimated $15 million. The next 5 years, the Joint Water and Sewer Commission has a master plan, capital project plan that accumulates to a total of $106 million. $106 million is a huge burden. And that's basically because we've got a lot of old assets that need a lot of help. This $15 million, it doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a huge help towards that number. And it's a number that takes a lot of load off of the ratepayers who would otherwise have to step up and pay out of their pockets to help fund these things. Obviously, we need more, but we'll love to get this. I guess the only other thing I wanted to say about it is, I think I've covered it all. The big thing is we have deteriorated lines, deteriorated assets, and this is going to fundamentally help us get ahead there. One last comment is, remember, if this frees up capacity in the North Mainland area, it will indeed open up possibilities for trade winds, and it will indeed open up a lot more opportunities for community development, building houses, building neighborhoods in those areas. And my analysis in the short time I've been here is that the housing industry in this county is huge. This is the backbone that those folks have to be able to build houses. This is also the backbone that's going to be required to allow that industrial part to ever take off and do what it potentially can. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So before we get to questions, I wanted to cover just a couple things. Someone took the pointer. It's very nice. Thank you. So just to add a couple things that Mr. Junkin said in this area, this is really the key area for us as a community from an economic development standpoint. We have the Trade Winds Park on I-95, some of the best frontage in the nation, 700 acres. We have our own Economic Development Authority owns property at Exit 42. We have the Exit 38 area. In fact, we have 2 hotels that have talked with our Community Development Department about locating here. They can't because of this line. There's an 8-inch line that comes under I-95 that comes down the Altamont Canal and somehow works its way back to the sewer system. Now, I've been told by JWSC staff that if you flush at the courtyard there at Exit 38, it takes 7 days for it to get back to the plant right down from the street from here. That's a very inefficient system. I'm not sure what happens to it in the 7 days, but anyway, it takes 7 days for that to work its way back. And what this reconfiguration will do is to not only upgrade the size of the lines and the lift stations, but will also provide a very efficient route. Carriage Gate, neighborhood on Harry Driggers Road. I was in there a few weeks back. I was amazed at the number of houses that have been built just in the short time that I've lived in Glynn County and are under construction now. This neighborhood is on the move, but it's not going to be on the move anymore until this line gets fixed. And as Mr. Junkin said, when you think about home building, when you think about a house, you have the foundation, the concrete, you have the blocks, you have the lumber, you have the electricians, you have the carpet, and the list goes on. So when you think about how many trades are just in one house. Now, back before the economic shutdown, we were issuing about 50 or 60, sometimes 80 residential permits a month. When the economy collapsed, we were issuing less than 10 permits a month. I think there's a direct correlation between the economic issues and the home building that was going on. So it's going to have an impact on our economy if we can't get the sewer lines fixed, especially in this area, number one, for new business, and number two, for residential home building. It's critical to our economy and to jobs. One of the county commissioner's responsibility is to support job creation. We fund the EDA. We do everything we can providing infrastructure for job creation. And SPLOST helps make that happen. I inadvertently skipped over a very important slide, and I apologize for that. Right there, thank you. SPLOST 2016 also includes funds, $1.5 million, to provide a very nice, well-done tribute to our veterans who have, in many cases, given their lives, given their sacrifice to defend our freedom. Because of their sacrifice and their service, we can freely meet here tonight. So the Board of Commissioners and the City Commission want to create a very nice Veterans Memorial not far from here at the IJ block, which will, one side will be Reynolds Street, the other side will be Newcastle. And then in addition to that, there'll be parking improvements where the old jail was. Now, outside in the lobby, there's a poster of this, so I encourage you when you leave, if you didn't on the way in, to look at that in more detail. It's probably clearer for you to see on the chart. And this, again, is on our website. But this is a very important project, and again, without SPLOST dollars, it's very difficult for the county to do projects such as this. And again, this will honor our veterans. What you see here is just a concept. So it has a plaza design. That's a concept, but I think it's a fairly consistent concept with what will be done. So before we take questions, I'd like to ask the commissioners if you have any comments to make before we open it up for questions. Commissioner Kaysen, Commissioner Elliott, Commissioner Drum. Okay, well, we will turn it over to questions. So again, if you could just come here to the middle aisle and ask your question, and we'll do our best to answer it. Who would like to be first?
I'd like to respond to. I didn't catch your name, Mr. Edwards. Appreciate your thoughts on that, and I identify with, since I'm in charge of that, I identify with a lot of what you said. One of the comments you made was pushing the Water and Sewer Commission back to the city and the county to get greater bonding capacity. And while I agree that the county and the city have greater bonding capacity than us, it's a situation more related to the revenues we've got. We currently have about $39 million in debt that we're paying off right now. We've got good bond ratings, but the issue would be if we were to borrow money, whether it be through the county or the city or any other means, where are we going to come up with the debt service payments to make the payments on that? For example, I did a bond issue in my previous life just a few months ago, and we were looking at $26 million, which is a small fraction of that 110. The annual debt service for a state revolving fund loan, which was real cheap money through the federal government, was $1.8 million a year. The current audit of our Joint Water and Sewer Commission business for this past fiscal year, we were about $246,000 right now. We haven't done all the final adjustments, but about $246,000 in revenue above what our expenses that we had to pay out. The problem would be, you say wouldn't, the bond issue would save us from, jacking up the rates to our ratepayers. No, in fact, just the opposite. If we borrowed the money, we would have to raise rates to even be able to pay off, to make the debt service, annual debt service, because that's how close the budget we operate in. It's a very tight and tough budget to live within. The tap fees is one mechanism we have to try to find the capital where we don't have it in the rates. And honestly, we feel like within our budget, we budget for the rehab and repair of our existing assets, the ones that all of you enjoy right now and get your level of service from now. That seems fair. It seems like it would seem to me that the expansion of service and the folks that benefit from that expansion ought to be the ones paying for that rather than jacking up rates to borrow money and pushing that over all of our ratepayers. Tap fees is a mechanism we can use to push that cost to the people that get the benefit directly, rather than making all ratepayers or water and sewer users pay for it. I think one other issue that maybe will help you get a little better mental image of some of the pressures we have is that in this county of, what was it, Mr. Strickland, 90,000, 83,000 people. Probably only 30,000 or no, it's probably a little more than that. It's probably only about 40,000 of them get buy services from us. There's a lot of people that don't use our services, even though they all rely on our function at one point or another. They don't actually pay in because they're on wells or they have septic tanks. There's a lot of that. And I don't know. I just wanted to make you understand what our situation is. I'm not saying it's a terrible idea, but we've got some, it's not quite as straightforward as it would sound.
Thank you. Other questions?
My name is Evie Wright, and I have two questions. One is for the county, and one is for the city. Where would you like me to begin? Okay. I have some concern about roundabouts, and my question is, will there be any public input or transparency in the design of the roundabouts? Of the 3 roundabouts that are currently on the island, and I believe there are just 3. Is that correct? I've only encountered 3. Well, 2 technical roundabouts, but the one when you head onto the island where Kings Road and, the thing that was touted as being a roundabout, we're going to call that a roundabout. It's a disaster. The one on Demery is a confusing, dangerous mess. The one on the north end of the island is not so bad, but the traffic there is a lot lighter. And when I was on Hilton Head, I noticed that they have a lot of traffic and they have a lot of roundabouts, and they seem to be designed in a much more logical, sensible fashion and safer fashion. They're designed so that if you were in the right lane, each roundabout has 2 lanes coming up to it. If you are in the right lane, you must turn right. And if you were in the left lane, you are then routed through the roundabout where you have an option of turning right at any of the exits. And it eliminates any need to change lanes and any confusion about which lane you're supposed to be in. So my question is, how are those going to be designed?
Thank you for that question. And I'm thinking you may be talking about the roundabout at Pope Avenue and Highway 278 there in Hilton Head. At least that's one of them that I'm familiar with. And if you consider the land area there compared to Demery Road and Frederica, that's a much larger area, so they had more area to work with. I think and I wasn't here then, but my guess is that at Demery and Frederica, one of the problems was it's just because of the businesses and the limited area that we have. So I can't tell you how they're going to be designed. What I will tell you though is that we are very aware of as you come on the island, that's not a roundabout. It didn't turn out very well. So we're very aware of that. The last thing we want to do is to create something that's going to add problems. That's not the purpose of the intersection improvements. It's not the purpose of the roundabouts. If you look at other communities in the southeast, in Europe, roundabouts has been touted, has been accepted as the most effective way to move traffic through an intersection. Right, and so our job as county staff is to make sure we get the right design engineer on board to ensure that roundabout is going to do what it's supposed to do. Now, in terms of transparency, refer back to the Citizens Oversight Committee. So through that committee, through the Board of Commissioners, through county staff, there will be transparency. In terms of having public comment, we haven't gotten that far yet, but there will be transparency, and the public will have opportunities to see what's going on, and that's one of the real keys about having this Citizens Oversight Committee. No. I mean, like I said earlier, SPLOST passes on the night of November 8th. We will begin to move very quickly with different projects. My guess is that the water and sewer is probably going to be right near the top because that's a critical issue. And then working with the Board of Commissioners, working with the Citizens Oversight Committee, we'll try to identify the next projects in line after that. And you had a city question?
Good.
About the sidewalk improvements that you briefly discussed. And right now I'm speaking to you on behalf of the Windsor Park Neighborhood Association. We had been talking with Commissioner Martin about the safe route to school heading to Glynn Middle School, because as we all know, there is no safe route to Glynn Middle School. And there is a map of the proposed route and sidewalks that are to be added so that we can get kids to the school safely so they don't need to walk on Lanier. And my understanding is that we are awaiting funding. Is that project part of this SPLOST?
I want to say it could be and it could not be, because if SPLOST passes, then that will free up other monies for Sidewalk. So we will begin looking at design of that project for the middle school right away. Matter of fact, we have been talking about it for a year now as well. So, well, okay. So there's something that we can do that. We can immediately go forward and do that. Even when SPLOST passes, if it passes immediately, because we already have designed it and so forth like that. So it should be real quickly. It should come out real quick.
Someone from our area will probably be calling your office to schedule a meeting to talk about it further.
That'll be fine. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. I'm Julian Smith, otherwise known as Putty, and I want to thank you all for giving members of the public as much time as you have. I am basically opposed to this SPLOST for a number of reasons. I won't get into those reasons, but I will ask a question in a moment. But I want to point out that there are more elected and appointed officials and members of county and town staff, city staff, here tonight than there are members of the public. And I'd like to ask you to consider why so few members of the public are here. I've done my best to encourage people to come, assuming that folks in this community actually read the so-called Brunswick News, where you posted your announcement for the series of meetings, and I took out an even bigger ad than yours to encourage people to come tonight. So I don't think we have a big enough sampling of the ordinary people or even the extraordinary people in this community who regularly come to these meetings for you to know whether or not the public here tonight is supportive of what you're doing. Now, I know you've worked very hard on this. I've been to almost all of your work sessions having to do with the SPLOST. I think there's some very necessary things on your list. Not enough for Brunswick, not a big enough share for Brunswick, not a big enough share for joint water and sewer. And I think you're putting too much into making traffic move faster and making water drain away. And I appreciate what Mr. Hours said about the need to widen some roads to improve conditions for evacuation. But the roads that are going to be widened, for instance, in St. Simons, they're not going to be widened. We're just going to have more traffic circles, which will be bottlenecks in themselves in a time of emergency. And what I do not see on the SPLOST, and what I would hope to see on the next SPLOST, if this one is turned down, and I hope there will be, if it is turned down, I hope there will be a SPLOST in 2018. What I don't see is anything that will provide shelter or refuge on the mainland or on St. Simons for folks who cannot evacuate for one reason or another, or who start to evacuate and find themselves blocked by sudden rise in the water. So I believe the chair is asking Mr. Hours to cut me off here. Or maybe you're going to ask well, go ahead, and I may have another question that comes after that.
I have a little bit of experience in this. I was the EMA director for this county for 5 years. One of the reasons is coastal counties do not build shelters.
I understand that.
It is ridiculous to ask people to stay in coastal communities when you have a hurricane that is going to virtually destroy a good portion of what is.
I understand. I agree with you.
That's the reason that we do not shelter or build shelters or anything like that in any coastal community.
Well, I hope you would at least identify and make public those buildings where, in the worst case scenario, people can shelter. Let me ask you this directly. If we had a Category 3 storm coming our way next week when Matthew comes up through the, if Matthew comes up through the Gulf, would you expect 100% evacuation of Glynn County? No. So you would expect...
But we can't force anybody to evacuate. You hear the term mandatory evacuation, but you cannot go into somebody's home and have law enforcement or whoever physically drag them out of
I understand, and I appreciate that.
So, you know, if they want to evacuate, or if they want to evacuate, they can evacuate. If they choose to stay, they do so at their own risk. That's the way that the coastal communities basically look at it. You know? So, no, not everybody's going to evacuate.
Yeah, and there are places, as on Blythe Island, and particularly to the immediate west of I-95, which is along an old barrier island. There are places in Glynn County that are up and above the highest predicted storm surge from, say, a Category 5 hurricane. So from experience, I know that sometimes people just can't get out in time. So.
And I would respectfully disagree with you. If we ever have a Category 5 hit Glynn County, 99% of this county will be underwater.
Yes, I agree with you. But there's still a lot of high land in that 1%. And also, when we evacuate, we sometimes, in some communities, have the problem of evacuating people into the path of a hurricane that shifts. So I think we really need to do something over the next few years, given the anomalies we've had recently. Storms, for the first time in recorded history in the United States, a tropical storm formed over land. It formed right south of us in the armpit of Florida. And we're sort of in the other armpit of the bite of Georgia. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Hours.
Other questions? Mr. Woodside?
Thank you. I don't really have a question. I just have a couple of comments, and I appreciate the I've been going to these public meetings we're having. And Putty, you're right. You and I are about the only ordinary people in the room. Is that right? Okay. Well, I'm kidding.
I'm just an ordinary fellow.
Yeah, I'm too. I wanted to at least commend you and the commission for the many hours that the city and the county have deliberated, and I've been to most of all those meetings, and have since have seen the presentation made, and of course there are a lot of reasons gone by as far as a past SPLOST not making a passing, but right now we're at, I think, pretty well a crossroads, and our chamber, and I work with them, voted at its annual retreat to support what y'all had come up with, and a lot of deliberations went into that. Not everybody's happy with everything on it, but at least it gets us going to fix infrastructure, which is what this is intended to do and was created to do in this state probably 20 years or more ago or more. And we've, in the past 5 years, I guess, have lingered by, no matter what the projects were, $100 million that could have fixed past stuff and the infrastructure we've had and helped us with future needs that we have that are ongoing right now. I think it'd be a mistake that if that our community let this opportunity go by, and our board voted unanimously 30. It's unusual to get our board to vote 30-0, and certainly 35 living past chairman of the chamber to do the same to support the SPLOST. We're on and I think I've been here 43 years, and I hope to spend the rest of my life here, but I think at some point the community's going to have to start putting the trust in the infrastructure that we need, sewer and water too, because the current ratepayers can't pay to catch us up with what we have had gone by. I think it's going to be a way of life personally. That's me on record saying that we're only one of 7 counties in the whole state of Georgia that does not take advantage of this. And by far, it wasn't 53. I think those figures and those percentages, it was estimated, it shocked me that 55 to 59% would be coming from outside this community, and not many counties can say that in the state. So thank y'all for what you're trying to do, and I encourage the public to turn out and support this one. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Okay, well, again, thank you very much for coming tonight. Please visit the Glynn County website, and also would like to invite you or your neighbors to attend our future town hall meetings. We have 2 left. Thank you very much, and hope everyone has a good evening.